To work, it does require that you have a Microsoft SQL Server. So if you already have one for different programs, like a database application, the management system type thing, for a fax server, for a document management system, you might already have the SQL Server piece that you need. But the way Mail Archiver works is it will take a copy of all inbound and outbound emails and store it in its database. It gives you a nice, neat little web interface that you can then go to, kind of like a webmail type thing, and do your searches. It's very flexible, letting you look at other people's mailboxes. It may be that you give managers permission to look at theirs and everyone's mailboxes in the department, or maybe only upper management has permission to look at everybody. But it does have a very powerful feature set as far as permissions go to let you get pretty granular of who can access what. If you're ever called for discovery and you have to access some emails that might have come in a couple of years ago, it can be pretty difficult to find those. But Archiver lets you search on multiple different levels, time frames, who the sender might have been, keywords in the summary or in the body of the email. Once you find them, you can do several things with them. Just with a one click, you can actually send them right back into Outlook. You can, even probably better, is package them all up into one neat little package that can then be exported and given to somebody, lawyers or whoever. So for the protection that GFI Mail Archiver can offer, it's a very, very reasonable product. The thing to take into account with this is, yes, you are keeping all the emails that have been sent forever. So it can grow pretty large hard drive space-wise. It's got the flexibility, though, to have multiple databases. You make one database per year. And the software's smart enough to every year just start putting the right emails in the right database. And you can take the old ones off your server and kind of put them aside unless you ever need to actually look back at previous years. The best feature, though, is it can work in line with your data retention policies, where you program in what your data retention policies are, and it automatically clears things from your archive. Because a very important part of the data retention policies is then following through and making sure you actually delete the data when it is old enough to be deleted. This will do it for you. Web monitoring, especially with most of the rating and work that you're doing being on websites, web monitoring is an important part of data retention. Knowing what's out there, being able to show where your people went, whether that be something accessing customer information or just some things that they're doing that they shouldn't. Web monitoring can protect the agency in numerous different ways of being able to reproduce where people were, what they were doing, for how long, and so on. For web monitoring, the product we recommend is Smart Web Defense. That's an appliance-based product. So there's no extra software that has to go on your network. If there are problems with the box, it's built so it'll pass the internet traffic through without causing problems with the network. It's very easy to use, very powerful reports, and it's quick to find all the information that you're looking for. Data encryption. As far as the how arm of data encryption, this is a big one that can really affect all the different parts of systems. What data encryption is, in short, is taking a piece of information, scrambling it up in a certain way that you can kind of unlock it with a code, or what's called the encryption key, and then sending that information to somebody or storing that information. Whenever it's accessed or looked at, the other person or whoever's looking at the information has the key or knows the key, and that key could be like a little certificate file on your computer, or the key could be a password, it can be a smart card, it could be lots of different things. But whenever we're talking about data encryption, we're talking about how the data is scrambled. The reason it's scrambled is if you don't have that key, it's very, very, very difficult to actually look at that information. So in the case that you do have a backup tape that's dropped, and you do encrypt your backups, somebody was to get that backup tape, the likelihood of them actually getting information off that tape is reduced dramatically. Different places we can do data encryption are via email. There are products out there, one recommended and known very well in the industry called PGP, which means pretty good privacy. No, not the most reassuring name, but it is a very, very good product. So that can work on several different levels. It can work right in Outlook. Say if you want one or two or three key people in the agency to need to send encrypted emails to a carrier, to a client that's requiring those certain types of things. And then the person getting the email has that key. You can get a larger version if the whole agency is requiring the ability to send encrypted emails and put it right on your own mail server. So it makes it simpler to do that. You'll have a send button like you always do, but then you'll also have a send encrypted button with both of these cases. Makes it pretty easy to do. There's also disk encryption. This is a pretty new thing. It's been talked about for a long time, and there's been software that's done the encryption for quite a while. But there are some new hard drives out there nowadays that actually will encrypt the information that's written to them. Automatically, it's built right into the hardware of the hard drive. This is most common right now in laptop hard drives because it's usually laptops that we have to worry about the data being encrypted most, since data is usually on the laptops leaving the agency. And finally, document management systems. This is usually overlooked as far as, what is a document management system going to do to help us retain the data? Well, it's going to help you save costs by not having to have all the storage units for the data that you do need to keep. It's a lot easier to reproduce data out of a document management system than it is out of paper files or out of a mess of spreadsheets out on your F drive somewhere. They make it very, very easy to receive that information very quickly. And backup systems and strategies. Obviously these are the last line of defense of the data retention. You've got your policies in, you've got the mail archiving and the document management system and other technologies in, you're encrypting your information, but now we actually have to make sure that information is going to be secured. And backups are what's going to be our main line of defense there. We've got several different types of backups on site. Everybody knows about tape backups. They've been around for a long, long time and are still a very viable solution today. Space-wise versus disk, it is a lot cheaper to store things on tapes. People might say, well, wait a minute, Bryant, we can get a terabyte hard drive for $80 nowadays. Well, sure, but that's one thing, and I look at that as one tape. And for a proper backup rotation, you need lots of backups and lots of ability to be granular with your restores. We've got offsite backups. You can have a third-party backup solution. You might have seen some TV commercials for some personal offsite backups, and there are professional versions of those as well. The key with those is, it's going to get your data offsite if there's a building disaster.